Captain James Mercer had always believed he was prepared for the unknown. Years of training, long missions in deep space, and countless survival drills had made him confident. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the moment when his small exploration ship detected a faint distress signal on the edge of an uncharted star system. The signal was weak, fragmented, and almost imperceptible. Most would have ignored it as a malfunction or a random cosmic disturbance, but James was different. He had a keen sense for danger, a curiosity that pushed him toward the unusual, and a firm belief that no life should be left behind. As he navigated through the asteroid belt surrounding the signal's origin, the shape of a small damaged spacecraft came into view. Its hull was scarred, some parts melted or bent from the crash. Sparks flickered intermittently and smoke curled upward in thin trails. James's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the sudden awareness that someone or something was still alive. He landed his ship carefully on the rough terrain nearby. Dust swirled around him, carried by a faint breeze from the planet's thin atmosphere. His eyes scanned the area. The crash site looked deserted except for the faint shimmer of movement near the ship's edge. James approached slowly, every step measured. There she was. The alien princess emerged from the wreckage. At first, James thought she might be unconscious, but as he got closer, he noticed her eyes were open, wide with pain and confusion. Her skin had a soft, radiant glow, unlike anything James had ever seen. It flickered gently like the light of a distant star, and he realized it reflected her life force. She was small, delicate, yet there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. Her clothing, though torn, hinted at a regal origin. Soft fabrics with intricate patterns and colors that seemed almost alive. James could feel her fear not just from the crash but from being alone in a strange world. He knelt at a safe distance, hands open to show he meant no harm. "I'm here to help," he said in a calm, steady voice. "You are safe now." The princess tilted her head, studying him. Her eyes, large and expressive, held suspicion. James knew that trust could not be demanded. It had to be earned. He looked at the injuries on her body, noticing the faint lines along her arms and chest where her energy veins dimmed. Those veins told him something important. She was very ill, perhaps dying, and her condition was unique to her species. James quickly examined her using the portable scanner from his ship. The readings were unlike anything in his database. Her body required a rare component to survive, something he did not fully understand but recognized as urgent. The faint glow of her energy veins was fading, and her breathing was shallow. If he did nothing, she would not last the day. He had little time. Despite the danger, James made his decision. He could not leave her to die. He prepared a stabilizing device from the equipment he carried, carefully adjusting it to interface with her biology. The princess watched him closely, her eyes flickering between fear and curiosity. James spoke softly as he worked. "It might feel strange, but I'm only trying to help you. Trust me, please." The device hummed as it connected, sending a gentle flow of energy to her veins. Slowly, the faint shimmer of her skin grew brighter. She gasped softly as if surprised by the warmth and life that returned to her body. James smiled, relieved but cautious. One step had been successful, but he knew this was only the beginning. The princess tried to stand but faltered. James moved closer, offering his arm. She hesitated but accepted it, leaning on him for support. Her grip was light but firm, a sign that she trusted him enough to let him hold her weight. "You are strong," James said quietly, "and you are not alone anymore." For a few moments they simply looked at each other, two beings from completely different worlds, united by a fragile thread of survival. James could sense her intelligence and her fear, her curiosity and her pride. She was a princess, yet in this moment she was just someone in need of help. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the alien planet bathed in soft purple and gold light. James set up a small shelter near the ship, shielding the princess from the chill of the night. He offered her water and nutrient packs, explaining as best he could how to use them. She watched him silently, but there was a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. James sat near her, keeping watch. Every sound of the wind, every distant movement in the shadows kept him alert. He knew danger could arrive at any moment, not from her, but from the environment or from beings that might follow the crash. But for now they were alone, and he was determined to keep her safe. Finally, the princess spoke. Her voice was soft, melodic, and filled with an unfamiliar accent. "Why, Do you help me? James paused. He thought about all the possibilities, all the reasons a human might be wary of an alien life form. But the truth was simple. Because it's the right thing to do, no one should be left to suffer alone. She studied him silently, then nodded slightly. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. Trust had begun to form, fragile yet real. Hours passed as James monitored her condition. He realized that saving her life would require more than stabilizing devices and supplies. Her body needed something rare, something he could only give from himself. It was a choice no human had made before, a decision that carried risk. But looking at her, fragile yet dignified, James knew he could not turn away. For now, though, the night was quiet. The stars above shone brightly, reflecting in the princess's glowing eyes. James felt a strange sense of peace. The beginning of an extraordinary journey had arrived. A human and an alien princess, strangers yet connected by fate, facing the unknown together. As he drifted into a light sleep near her, James promised himself silently he would do whatever it took to save her. And perhaps in doing so, they would discover a bond that transcended worlds. The morning light filtered softly through the alien planet's thin atmosphere, painting the rocky landscape in gentle shades of purple and gold. Captain James Mercer had stayed awake most of the night monitoring the princess. She had slept fitfully, her glowing veins flickering faintly, a reminder that time was slipping away. James knew that stabilizing devices and nutrient packs would not be enough. Her condition required something more, something only he could provide. His mind raced as he considered the options. The human body had certain unique elements that could interact with her alien physiology, elements that might restore her energy in ways machines could not. But it was risky. Sharing his blood with her could have consequences for him. It was a choice few humans would dare. He looked at the Princess Lyra, who had woken and was sitting quietly in the shelter he had built. She seemed fragile yet regal, her large eyes watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. James felt a pang of empathy. Every second he delayed could cost her life. "Lyra," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "There's something I can do to help you, but it will be risky for both of us." Her eyes widened. She tilted her head, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Risky? How?" James explained carefully, choosing his words to be simple but honest. "Your body needs something rare, something my blood has. If I share it with you, it can help your energy veins glow again. You'll feel stronger, but it could make me weak for a while." Lyra looked down at her hands, trying to process what he was saying. In her culture, blood was sacred, a symbol of life and trust. To accept blood from another being was a deep bond, a connection that went beyond friendship or duty. She had never imagined she would face this moment, on a strange world with a human who had saved her from certain death. James waited patiently. He did not rush her. He had learned that trust could not be demanded. He had to show her that he cared, that his intentions were pure. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I could trust you. If this can save me, I will try." James nodded, relieved. "Thank you. I promise I will be careful. We will do this together." He prepared a simple device to make the process safe. Nothing too complicated, just a gentle, controlled transfer of blood. He guided her to sit comfortably, her glowing veins dimming as she waited. He carefully drew a small amount of his blood, feeling the responsibility weigh heavily on him. One wrong step could harm either of them. As he began the procedure, Lyra flinched slightly at the sensation. The first moments were tense. James spoke softly to her, his voice calm and steady. "It's okay. You're safe. Just focus on breathing." Slowly, the faint glow in her veins began to return. It started as a subtle shimmer, then grew brighter, stronger. Lyra gasped, a mix of relief and surprise lighting her face. It feels warm," she whispered. Her hands trembled slightly, but she did not pull away. James smiled gently. "Yes, that warmth is life returning. Your body is responding. Keep steady." For hours he monitored her closely. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing moment. Lyra's initial fear began to fade, replaced by gratitude and a strange sense of connection. She had never experienced such selflessness. This human who came from a world so different from hers was risking his own safety for her. As the procedure ended, James carefully removed the device. Lyra's energy veins pulsed brightly now, a sign that she was healing. She looked at him with awe, her large eyes reflecting both wonder and deep appreciation. "James," she said softly, using the name he had shared with her. "You saved me. You offered your life to help me." James shook his head gently. "It wasn't about saving me. It was about saving you. That's what matters." Lyra reached out and touched his hand, a small but meaningful gesture. In her language, she whispered a phrase that carried immense significance, words reserved for those who had shared life and spirit. "My bonded one." James felt a warmth spread through him at the sound of her words. It was not just a title. It was a recognition of trust, courage, and the deep connection that now existed between them. He nodded humbly. "Then, I will honor that bond, always." The rest of the day passed quietly. James and Lyra rested in the shelter, talking in simple words, gestures, and expressions. She began to share stories of her life, her planet, and the traditions of her people. He listened intently, fascinated by the differences and similarities between their worlds. Lyra learned about James's life too, his training, missions, and the responsibilities he carried as a human explorer. She was amazed at his courage, humility, and patience. For the first time in her life, she felt that someone truly understood the weight of duty and the power of compassion. By evening, Lyra's strength had returned significantly. She was still delicate, but the glow in her veins was steady, a symbol of the life James had helped restore. They stepped outside the shelter together, watching the alien sunset. The sky was painted in deep shades of violet and amber, and the stars began to appear one by one. James pointed to a constellation. "In my world, we have stories about these stars. They guide travelers, keep people safe, and remind us of hope." Lyra smiled faintly. "And now, they remind me of you, my bonded one, the one who gave me life when I could have been lost." The words touched James deeply. He had faced countless dangers in his life, but none had felt as meaningful as this moment. Saving her was more than a mission. It was a choice born of empathy, courage, and trust. As night fell, they prepared for sleep. James kept a watchful eye, ensuring the princess remained safe and comfortable. He knew the challenges ahead would not be easy. Her enemies might still pose threats, and their bond would be tested in ways neither could yet imagine. But for now, they had survived the first trial together. Lyra rested, her hand lightly touching the device where James had offered his blood. It was a constant reminder of the bond they shared, a silent promise that they would face the future together. James, sitting beside her, felt a deep sense of purpose. He had made a choice that could have cost him dearly, yet it had forged a connection stronger than anything he had ever known. And as the stars twinkled above, two beings from completely different worlds slept under the same sky, united by courage, trust, and the beginning of a bond that could transcend galaxies. The days after the life-saving procedure passed slowly but steadily. Princess Lyra regained her strength with each passing hour, and the glow in her energy veins became more consistent. Captain James Mercer stayed by her side, offering support in both small and meaningful ways. Yet it was not only her body that required healing. Her mind needed reassurance and trust, and theirs needed understanding. Lyra had been cautious from the beginning. Humans were strangers to her, and she had been raised to value the traditions and caution of her people above all else. Yet James's actions had begun to break through her walls. Each day she observed his patience, his calm decisions, and the genuine care he showed, not just for her survival, but for her comfort and dignity. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to soften. One morning, James guided her to a small stream that cut through the rocky terrain. The water was cool, clear, and gentle, flowing over smooth stones. "You need to stay hydrated," he said simply, pointing to the stream. "This water is clean. It will help you regain strength." Lyra knelt beside him, observing the flow, then hesitated before touching the water with her hand. It was a small act, yet it signaled her willingness to trust him in the simplest ways. James watched her carefully, ensuring that she felt safe. "You can do it slowly," he said. "There's no rush. Just take your time." After a few moments, she drank, the water helping to ease the fatigue that lingered from her illness. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and cautious gratitude. You think of everything," she said softly. James shrugged, smiling lightly. "I only do what I can to help. That's all any friend can do." Their moments together became routines of trust and understanding. James taught Lyra simple techniques to maintain her energy, showing her how to stretch, move, and focus in ways that complemented her alien physiology. Lyra, in turn, shared pieces of her culture, explaining her people's traditions, beliefs, and the values they held most dear. They discovered that though their worlds were vastly different, there were similarities in the way both humans and Lyra's people valued loyalty, courage, and compassion. This realization helped bridge the gap between them, giving them a common ground from which their friendship and bond could grow. One afternoon, while Lyra practiced moving along the rocky slopes with James's guidance, she stumbled slightly. Instinctively, James reached for her, steadying her with care. She looked up at him, startled at the intimacy of the moment. For a second, words failed her, but her eyes spoke volumes. "You trust me," he said softly, sensing her hesitation. Lyra nodded slightly. "I am learning to." James smiled. "That's all anyone can ask. Trust is not instant. It grows step by step." Over the following days, they faced small challenges together, navigating tricky terrain, foraging for food, and ensuring the shelter remained secure during the planet's occasional winds. Each task was an opportunity to learn more about one another, to test patience and to understand strengths and weaknesses. At night, when the stars stretched across the sky, they would sit quietly, sharing stories. James told her about Earth, his home planet, describing landscapes, oceans, and forests. He spoke of simple things: rain falling on a quiet street, the warmth of sunlight, the smell of fresh bread, things Lyra could imagine, though they were alien to her senses. Lyra, in return, spoke of her planet, of crystal-clear lakes, glowing forests, and cities carved into cliffs. She told stories of her ancestors, of traditions that celebrated life, courage, and knowledge. James listened attentively, asking questions to understand more deeply. Each story, each shared detail, strengthened their connection. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the horizon, Lyra turned to James. "You understand me," she said quietly. "Not just my body, not just what I need to survive, but me. You see who I am, not just what I am." James looked at her, touched by the sincerity in her voice. "I do, and I will always try to. That is what being bonded means. It's more than helping. It's understanding, respecting, and caring for someone fully." Lyra's eyes softened. "In my world, few have ever shown such patience, such dedication. I am grateful, more than words can say." James shook his head lightly, smiling. "You don't have to say anything. Your trust is enough." As their bond grew, they began to anticipate each other's needs. Lyra noticed how James moved, always thoughtful, always careful. He noticed subtle changes in her expression, small shifts in her energy that told him when she was tired, worried, or uncertain. Communication became almost instinctive, a silent understanding forming between them. Yet trust also meant vulnerability. Lyra shared a memory from her past, a moment when she had felt abandoned and alone despite the many who surrounded her. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. James listened without judgment, offering quiet support. "You are not alone anymore," he said simply. "I am here. I will stay." Those words were a balm to her spirit. She realized that the bond they shared was more than survival. It was companionship, understanding, and mutual respect. The title of Bonded One was not just a phrase. It was a reflection of what they had built together, a connection that transcended species and circumstance. In the following days, their training and routines continued. Lyra's movements became stronger, more confident, and she began to trust not only James's guidance but her own instincts. James, for his part, grew more attuned to her needs, understanding the subtle rhythms of her body and mind. Together, they faced challenges calmly, relying on their growing trust to navigate the unknown. The quiet moments, the shared meals, the conversations under alien skies, they all contributed to a sense of normalcy, of stability, in a world that had been chaotic and uncertain. Each day their bond deepened, unspoken yet undeniable. By the end of the week, Lyra stood tall beside James, her energy veins glowing brightly, her posture confident. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, an understanding that they were more than allies, more than savior and saved. They were bonded in a way that neither had expected, yet both had embraced. As the stars sparkled overhead, Lyra reached for James's hand, a small gesture filled with significance. You are my bonded one, she said softly. James squeezed her hand gently. And you are my trusted companion. Together we face whatever comes next. In that quiet moment, beneath the alien sky, two beings from entirely different worlds knew they had discovered something rare. A bond built on trust, understanding, and unwavering loyalty. A bond that would guide them through the challenges still ahead. The days passed slowly on the alien planet, each filled with quiet moments of recovery and growing trust. Lyra had regained much of her strength, and the glow of her veins shone steadily, a sign that the human's blood had truly saved her. Yet outside the shelter, the world remained complicated. Not everyone in her palace or among her people welcomed the presence of a human. Messages from her advisors had reached her, carried by trusted messengers who had observed James's care for her. Some viewed him as a dangerous influence, a stranger who could upset the delicate balance of their society. Others, though quieter, questioned why a human would risk his life for an alien princess. Lyra listened to their concerns, but her heart remembered the warmth, courage, and care that James had shown her. She knew his intentions were pure, yet she also understood the power of appearances in her world. A single misstep could undo everything they had accomplished together. James noticed the tension as well. He understood little of her politics, but he felt it in the way her eyes sometimes clouded with worry, or how she paused when speaking of her advisors. He approached her gently one evening as they walked along a ridge overlooking the alien plains. Lyra, he said softly, I can feel that something is troubling you. You do not need to face it alone. She looked at him, conflicted. It is not your fight, James. My people, they may not accept you. They may see you as a threat. James shook his head. I may be from another world, but loyalty is universal. I am here because I promised to help you. That promise does not end when others disagree. Lyra studied his face, searching for any sign of hesitation. There was none. In that moment, she realized that the bond they shared had grown beyond survival. It had become trust, a trust that would not break under pressure. The next morning brought the first real test. A small delegation arrived from the palace, sent to evaluate James. Their expressions were cautious, their eyes filled with skepticism. They observed him closely as he moved around the shelter, tending to supplies and ensuring Lyra's comfort. Human, one of the advisors began, their voice formal yet sharp. You have been allowed near the princess. Why should we trust you? How do we know your intentions are honest? James remained calm, meeting their gaze. I helped the princess because she needed help. I did not do it for power, recognition, or reward. She was alone, injured, and in danger. I could not leave her. My intentions are simple, to keep her safe and honor the bond she and I share. The advisors exchanged quiet whispers. Some seemed unconvinced, others intrigued. Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention despite her small frame. He saved my life, she said clearly. He offered his blood when I could have died. That is not a simple act. It is the most honest proof of loyalty and courage I have ever seen. If you cannot understand that, perhaps you have forgotten the meaning of honor. Her words had power. James watched as the tension in the group shifted slightly, their skepticism giving way to reflection. Lyra's people had long respected actions over words, and she had spoken the truth. Even so, James knew this was only the beginning. Their bond, though strong, would be tested again. Decisions he made, small or large, could affect her safety and their relationship. He had to be careful, thoughtful, and unwavering. Over the next few days, James helped Lyra navigate both physical recovery and the subtleties of her social world. He observed her interactions with her people, noting their reactions and concerns. He learned quickly that respect had to be earned through patience, humility, and consistent action. He never tried to dominate or impose, only to assist and support. Lyra, in turn, began to share more of her thoughts and fears. She admitted her worry that her people might reject James outright, despite the life-saving bond they shared. They may never accept you, she said one night as they watched the twin moons rise. But I cannot deny what you have done for me. You are part of my life now, whether they agree or not. James reached out, gently holding her hand. Then we face it together. I cannot change their minds alone, but I can stand by you. Your trust is what matters most. As the weeks continued, they faced smaller challenges too. Unexpected storms that threatened their shelter, strange creatures that wandered near their camp, and the constant uncertainty of an alien environment. Each obstacle reinforced their reliance on one another, deepening their connection. One evening, as they prepared for a particularly cold night, Lyra spoke quietly. "James, when I called you my bonded one, I meant it. That bond is not just about survival. It is about trust, loyalty, and understanding. I have seen how you act, how you care, and I believe in you." James felt a warmth spread through him. He had faced countless missions, challenges, and dangers, but nothing compared to the weight and beauty of her words. "Lyra, I promise I will honor that bond always. Nothing will change that, not storms, not doubts, not even fear." The days passed with the rhythm of quiet determination. Lyra and James trained together gently, preparing for the eventual return to her palace and the challenges that awaited. He taught her small survival skills from his world, while she shared lessons about her culture, her people, and the wisdom of her ancestors. Each lesson strengthened their trust, building a partnership based on respect rather than necessity. And so, under alien skies and the watchful glow of distant stars, the human and the princess faced the first true test of loyalty, not from external danger, but from the choices, opinions, and skepticism of those around them. Together they had survived the unknown. Together they would face the judgments of a world that did not yet understand their bond. In the quiet moments before sleep, Lyra rested her head lightly against James's shoulder, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. In her eyes was trust, gratitude, and hope. In his unwavering commitment. They were not just allies nor simply savior and saved. They were partners in a journey that would test every measure of courage, loyalty, and heart. And as the night stretched across the alien landscape, two beings from different worlds found strength not just in themselves, but in the bond they had forged, a bond that no challenge could break, a bond that would guide them through the trials yet to come. The morning sun rose slowly over the alien plains, painting the sky with shades of soft pink and gold. Captain James Mercer and Princess Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast landscape. The journey they had shared was long, filled with challenges, but every moment had strengthened the bond between them. Lyra's people had sent another delegation, this time to witness her recovery, and to meet the human who had saved her life. The advisors arrived with formal expressions, their eyes cautious but curious. They had heard the reports of James's loyalty, his courage, and his unwavering care for the princess. Still, the uncertainty lingered in their faces. James remained calm, standing beside Lyra. He had learned over the past weeks that patience and respect were as important as courage. He did not seek to impress or demand acceptance. Instead, he simply stood as a witness to the bond they had formed, a bond built on trust, loyalty, and genuine care. Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "This is the human who saved me," she said clearly, her voice firm yet gentle. "He offered his life to help me, and in doing so, he became my bonded one. You may question him, doubt him, or fear him, but his actions have already proven his heart." The delegation studied James carefully. He met each gaze with honesty, humility, and quiet confidence. One of the advisors spoke first cautiously. "Human, your actions have indeed been noted. Offering your blood for the princess is a sign of courage and loyalty beyond what we have seen. But will you continue to protect her when challenges grow?" James nodded, steady and unwavering. "I will. My bond is not temporary. I will stand by her side, not for power, reward, or recognition, but because she trusted me, and because I promised to protect her. That promise will not end." There was a moment of silence. Lyra's people were not used to such simplicity, such honesty. Many had seen alliances formed out of ambition, fear, or obligation. But here they saw something rare, a bond of genuine care and trust between two beings from completely different worlds. Slowly, one by one, the advisors began to nod. Their expressions softened as they realized that James's loyalty was true. Some were still cautious, but the respect in their eyes was unmistakable. Lyra looked at James with pride and gratitude, and he returned her gaze with quiet determination. Over the next few days, preparations began for their return to the palace. James and Lyra worked together to navigate the social and cultural expectations of her world. Every action, every word was carefully considered. They moved as a team, complementing each other's strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. During this time, James learned more about Lyra's people, their traditions, their stories, and the subtle rules that governed their society. He discovered that trust and honor were paramount, and that acts of courage were valued more than titles or wealth. He realized that the bond he and Lyra shared would speak louder than any words, and he embraced the responsibility that came with it. Lyra, in turn, learned about human courage, determination, and humility. She admired the way James had faced fear without hesitation, how he had offered himself to save her life, and how he had remained patient and respectful, even when faced with uncertainty. For the first time, she understood that bravery was not just about strength or skill. It was about heart, choice, and loyalty. The journey back to the palace was filled with quiet moments of reflection. Lyra and James walked together along the rugged paths, sharing small stories and laughter. Each moment of ease was precious, a reminder of how far they had come and how much they had endured. When they finally reached the palace gates, a crowd had gathered. News of the princess's recovery and the human who had saved her had spread quickly. People whispered among themselves, curious and intrigued. Lyra led James to the center, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She turned to the crowd and spoke clearly, her voice carrying authority and sincerity. "This human is my bonded one. He offered his life to save me when I was at my weakest. He stood by me without hesitation, without expectation, and without fear. He is a friend, a protector, and a companion. Let his actions speak for themselves." The crowd fell silent. Some were amazed, others skeptical, but all recognized the weight of her words. Actions, not titles, defined respect in their culture, and James's actions had already proven his worth. The palace advisors, once cautious, now stepped forward. They bowed slightly, acknowledging the bond between human and princess. "Your courage and loyalty are clear," one said. "We welcome you not just for your actions, but for the bond you share with our princess." James nodded humbly. He did not speak of reward or recognition. His focus remained on Lyra, on the trust she had placed in him, and on the promise he had made to always protect her. As the days passed, James and Lyra continued to work together. They strengthened her leadership, shared knowledge, and guided her people with care. The bond they shared became a symbol for others, a reminder that trust, loyalty, and courage could bridge even the widest gaps between worlds. At night, under the stars, Lyra spoke softly to James. "You are more than my savior, my bonded one. You are my partner, my friend, my chosen companion. Together we face what comes next, not as two different beings, but as one." James smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond relief or pride. "I promise, Lyra, whatever comes, we face it together. Our bond is more than a title. It is a choice, a trust, and a connection that cannot be broken." And so, under the gentle light of distant stars, two beings from entirely different worlds began a new chapter. The human who offered his blood to save an alien princess had not only restored her life, but had forged a connection that would endure beyond challenges, beyond differences, and beyond the expectations of others. In that quiet moment, James and Lyra understood something profound. True bonds are built not on duty or obligation, but on trust, courage, and the willingness to stand together, even when the world doubts you. And together they stepped forward, ready to face a future filled with hope, respect, and the promise of a shared journey that would last a lifetime.